you did readings for Nelson Mandela for 12 years. Tell us more about that.
So I was very lucky to be introduced to him. And it's going to be interesting in my book. It's going to be in there. But that opened up a whole lot of doors. So I developed a relationship with him, and a lot of people like him through that. But I got to understand the man a lot more. So very powerful being, very powerful energy. I find his life story fascinating, from where he came from and what he learned and what he developed into. Full integrity, but he wasn't always like that. Definitely. History shows that.
What kind of a man was he?
Salt of the earth. Powerful. You knew that his presence was there. It was obviously very confidential, his life process, but he as a person was very respectful. Mr. Jason is what he called me. He was just a nice guy.
Jason Wolverson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time out to come to Durban and to be on the Peak Performance Live podcast.
Very happy to be here. It's nice to connect with all of you and for you. I think it's an awesome step for you and for everybody. So I feel honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, the podcast is about human potential and the ability of individuals to inspire others with various capabilities, levels of success, the things that people will find inspirational. And so I want to introduce you and what I know about you, and then we can see where the conversation leads. But you're a successful businessman. You have an MBA from Cumbria. You're studying towards your doctorate at the moment. You run several successful businesses in the energy space. And you're the vice president of Pegasus Universal Aviation,
Aerospace,
right?
Yeah.
Aerospace. So that's an aviation company that I think is breaking new ground. From what I see, it looks like the Tesla of aviation.
Yes.
It's something really exciting.
Super exciting.
Yeah. So you have this level of entrepreneurship and financial success, but what you're really known for, I think well known for, is your psychic ability and your space in the spiritual world. So it's quite interesting. You're quite interesting.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is a bit of a different process, and it's difficult sometimes for people to wrap their head around it. But yes, definitely born into a spiritual space and learning how to connect with that, and obviously teaching people how to help them in their lives.
Yeah.
And I realized a while ago that to work in the physical world, you need a little bit of education to acquire a bit of success, because we need more in life for our families,
Yes. Yeah. So what inspires you to keep learning? Because an MBA must have been challenging enough, but now you've decided, okay, I'm going to do a doctorate. What motivates you, and how do you find the time?
So that is a multi-dimensional question for me to answer, so I'm going to do my best to answer it. So I have a really incredible circle of people around me that I learn from, that I sort of get mentored from as well, and they're highly driven and successful. And you know that saying that you are the 5 closest people around you, then I'm great, because I've got amazing people around me.
Yeah.
But they inspire me, and it teaches me to drive. But also I think where I come from in life, I also have amazing children, and I want the best for them. So, and also the more that I've been growing in my personal space, the more I want to grow. And it's become addictive, but in a good way, because it's helping me into my day-to-day functionality. So I have a bit of a schedule that I stick to every day to sort of get the best out of myself. My saying in life for my family and for everybody is, when you put your head down at night, know that you've done the best that you can that day. So I'm trying to push myself, trying to not listen to the mind. I think that we all have that issue. I think if human beings were honest with themselves and they sat and they're their own worst enemies, and I'm guilty of that. So I've learned to not listen to that. I've learned to push myself. I've learned to do that extra hour. I've learned to wake up and exercise. I've learned to drive. And, you know, I realized that the success from pushing yourself is a lot better. That tired is a lot better than being unmotivated and not doing anything, you know.
Yeah.
So both spiritually, physically, energetically, everything. So I try and push myself on all those levels. So every day I wake up and I just try and do the best that I can. I know that sounds sort of cliche, but that is how I do it. I try and read a little bit. I try and meditate every day. I study something every day. I don't listen to music in my car. I'm listening to podcasts. When I'm in the sauna, I'm listening to, you know, Andrew Huberman or David Sinclair or Mark Hyman, and I'm getting that information in. So, and it helps, you know.
So it's just a continual learning process.
Yeah. I also was recommended a really, really great book that I recommend for everyone, called Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog.
Phil Knight.
Okay.
He created Nike, and how he did it and how they just winged it. I think it's an awesome platform for life, because we all think we know what we're doing. And I've been going on that journey, and just getting that information helps me to understand my life a bit better. So continuous learning.
Okay.
So check it out. Phil Knight, Shoe Dog.
He's a very interesting character.
Yeah. So I just recently watched the movie Air.
Yeah.
It's a Shawshank Redemption movie. I don't know if that's one of my favorite movies, but you're sitting there like cheering. You know, when you realize how they got to Michael Jordan eventually from where they started. I mean, it's quite a phenomenal story. It's great for everyone to check it out.
Yeah, it sounds good. Tell us about the businesses that you operate in the energy space.
So I'd like to just start by saying that I got a message from the universe that I needed to upscale my life. So I consciously took a sabbatical from my spiritual work, which I've been doing for 25 years now. And the deal was, once I've gotten business right, I would then, you know, get back into the spiritual side. And in that time, COVID happened, and a client contacted me and said, Jay, listen, the way things have shut down now, I desperately need diesel. You must know somebody. And I said, I know a few people. I never realized that my strength is actually my Rolodex. I've done a lot of readings. I know a lot of people. So I phoned the guy as a friend of mine. He said, sure, Joe, I can get you diesel. I'll give it to you at cost. You can put a commission on. And I put a rand on. I'm not realizing that was a massive commission. And the guy was so desperate, he took as much as he could get. And that's how my family survived COVID, because my work is like this.
Yes.
I see people and the businesses and things that I work in spiritually, I deal one-on-one. So I trade in the fuel space, all kinds of fuels. That's how that business was birthed. And since we do a lot of local trading, we do a lot of vessel imports and exports around the world, tank takeovers and all that kind of thing. It's taken us many years to learn the intricacies of it. There's a partnership of three of us, Aubrey, Matthew, and myself, and that's a Carney Global Petroleum.
Okay.
We've got international supply and also local supply. So that's that business, and then I've got a business called Impact Coal. Impact Coal is a coal processing business right now where we get coal from various sources. We process it to the client spec, and we get it to them, and that's how we operate there.
What's involved in processing coal to a spec?
So there's a crushing and washing machine. The coal comes in, the coal gets crushed and washed to a specific spec. It's called a CV. So if we get for instance, a 21 CV coal, we can crush and wash it up to a 28 CV spec, for instance, which is a really good quality coal. It's called RB1. which people don't really need nowadays. But, that's sort of how it works. You clean it and you wash it, and all the bad coal goes to the bottom and the good coal sticks to the top,
Okay.
sort of thing. And that's how you know the difference. So we get a client that says, listen, Jay, we need 20,000 tons of this kind of spec. We get the coal, we process it to that spec by crushing and washing it.
Okay. Is it mostly export or?
So it's not export yet, but we're working towards that. We've actually got all the facilities to export lined up, which, if you understand the laws in our country, it's quite difficult to do. We're just very fortunate to have that facility. So that is the end goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a coal to liquid process?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
So we have a technical guy, Terence. We call him our boots on the ground guy. He handles all of that stuff. Matthew and myself, we call ourselves affectionately the boardroom guys.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know the technicalities of all of that. I'm just very lucky enough to bring the people together.
Okay. I think one of the most interesting business aspects that you're involved in is Pegasus, because it just seems like such a fascinating concept. So for the people that are listening and watching, it's a vertical takeoff and landing business jet.
Yes.
So, which is quite incredible, because this is groundbreaking. This must be something completely unique. And you managed to get visibility in a major Hollywood film. The jet was featured in The Lost City with Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock and Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, that's amazing. How does that happen?
It's a very special moment.
Yeah.
Very, very special. So it's quite a beautiful story with regards to my relationship with Dr. Reza Mia. He actually dreamt Pegasus.
Okay.
So that's right up my alley. And
Yes.
of course, with a guy with a brain like he's got, he's fascinated by aeronautics. And so he dreamt this. And he's been creating the technology for many years. And then we met on a spiritual journey, and we kind of just gelled. And I learned the science about Pegasus and kind of been helping him to drive the business. And as a result, I was lucky enough that he made me the vice chairman of the business. But we've developed a close relationship. But the technology is phenomenal. It's the first of its kind. There's a lot of interest in it right now at the moment. We've got a very big company that's completely partnered with us. The building full scale is starting to happen. The technology development has happened, but the application of it and the executing of Pegasus actually flying is currently underway.
Yeah.
So yeah, and once that starts happening, we've got a lot of other interest. So yes, it's a vertical lift business jet.
Yeah.
And so it takes off. It can take off normally, but it also can take off. Basically, you can have a helicopter pad.
Yes.
It's 15 meters wide, so it can fly from helicopter pad to helicopter pad. It can fly up with the jets. So the idea is for the businessman to make his life easier. I know in our current lifestyles, it would make our lives a lot easier personally, and that's not just being a prima donna. It absolutely would. I was listening to Elon Musk the other day talk, and he doesn't have all these fancy assets, but he's got a jet.
Yes.
And he says it cuts his time so much, so he's able to do more. Reza will be much better with the details, but if you take from start to stop with Pegasus, it cuts hours out of the time. And the fuel efficiency and the technology is always upgrading, so it's really fun. It's a really fun project.
Because it saves you time, right? And time is the greatest asset of the global business elite.
Absolutely, absolutely. We went to eBase, which is the biggest international aeronautics show. And all these companies like Bombardier and, all these big jet companies, all of them that you can think of, they go there and they showcase the latest technologies. And I was really blown away because Reza was put up on stage and he was sitting rubbing shoulders with NASA and, and the likes of those companies. And Pegasus is streets ahead of all of them. And that's not just from a personal, marketing perspective. It really is. The technologies, the blade technologies, the frequencies, and these guys, didn't believe much in what we were doing, and now it's actually materializing. So it's a beautiful, beautiful time for Pegasus. Beautiful.
Maybe it would be interesting for people to know the kinds of applications that the Pegasus Jet would fulfill that current technology can't. So where do you see the jet being used in new spaces?
So day-to-day business travel. So like I just flew this morning here to see you from Durbs. That would be a very easy trip and much quicker. So, Pegasus would be very geared around Europe, if you think about it. Flying all over there, cross-border. It could quite comfortably go from Europe to America. So you can travel. We're busy working on the mileage now, but up to, comfortably way past Cape Town from Joburg, and up into Africa. So it's not really for the massive long hauls, but you can get exceptionally far. But it's more for sort of cross-border, but closer cross-border, not like from here to Australia.
Yeah.
That'll come in time, but for right now, there's a big calling to get to your places quickly. So for the people in the mining industry, for instance, or going from South Africa to Zimbabwe to Botswana, up into Africa, any place that you want to in Europe. Once you're in America, because the market's massive in America, you can get comfortably all over America.
What about the potential roles in like a medical evac situation? I mean, that must be
massively
an amazing opportunity.
So also the technology with Pegasus, it'll sit still in any weather pattern.
Okay.
It won't move.
Yeah.
It'll stay there. All the technology is designed like that. So think of like a drone on steroids. So you can imagine out there crazy weather conditions out at sea with an evac situation as well. It would be perfect for that. We've had lots of interest, obviously, from the military. We didn't want to militarize it, but it would make sense in a lot of those scenarios. But definitely medic evac. I mean, ambulances as well. I mean, you could get in there, quickly park it there and get fast to where you go.
You get your patient out much faster.
Yes, very much so. And Riza's currently working on the technologies internally to make it as comfortable inside. He's working on all the sciences at the moment. So while you're talking, it's not kind of like this. It's very fascinating. I try and sound like I know what I'm talking about in those meetings, but it's really interesting to hear.
Oh, we must definitely get Riza in here and have a chat with him on all the technical details.
Yes, I think this will be a great platform for him.
Okay.
And for you and for everybody to see what's going on. I also think that a lot of people don't know enough about it.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of people would want to be involved if they actually knew, because there's a lot of excitement at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think another important issue to bring up, not an issue, an opportunity rather, is that there is the opportunity for the public to participate in purchasing shares in Pegasus at the moment. So that's something that we can make viewers aware of.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, so there's a public share option at the moment. I think for the purpose of this, we'll put all the links on.
We can put it in the video description.
We can put it in the video description. But Riza is creating an opportunity for the person on the street to get involved, especially now. It's a no-brainer. The business is literally going to take flight, excuse the pun. So it's a great opportunity for people to get involved in the ground roots right now.
Yeah.
So check it out. Go onto the website and have a look. And I think all the detail deeply entrenched is over there.
Because this is no doubt a multi-billion-dollar opportunity in the long term.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, going back to the E-base, we were there. I don't want to knock other jets, but one of the most famous business jets. It sounds like stream.
Okay.
But they gave us the new model of what they were doing, and it's a different color. It's different internally. The engine's still the same. Really pretty though. It's really beautiful, but the technology that Pegasus is coming with is really otherworldly. It hasn't been done before.
Could the technology be upscaled for a bigger jet, a bigger payload, for example? Maybe commercial?
Yes, absolutely. And it's going to be very user-friendly. So down, up, left, right, fast, slow. All the technology is built in. You know, you'll be able to land very comfortably. It's super safe. There's all sorts of mechanisms built in there. So it is the first of its kind, and it is groundbreaking across the board. And you know, with a brain like Reese's God, it's constantly evolving, you know. And we're so lucky. I think it's going to be public knowledge shortly. The company that we've partnered with now, it's the first time that I can see Reza having a functional conversation with somebody that understands him, and they can move forward, and they get him. So it's going to be constantly evolving. So obviously the Pegasus Jet is really pretty, funky, fast, super. It's cutting edge. It's going to be great, but there's plans for all sorts of other ones as well. I could talk about a lot. It makes me very excited. You know.
Well, that's good. That's the energy that people resonate with. You know, you want to inspire people. That's the reason for us doing the podcast.
And it's also about belief. You know, no one believed in him. I did a lot, and I could see the potential. And now people are starting to believe. So you're right. It's about having faith.
Yeah.
Having faith. I mean, who would have thought an aesthetic doctor coming up with an idea like this? And now look what's happening.
Yeah.
So you know that age-old saying, you've got to have faith and have belief in yourself. It's true. It's absolutely true. I'm very proud of him. It's good.
It shows. So it's an interesting question now, because you have the qualifications, you have thriving businesses, you're on the brink. I would imagine if Pegasus has the success that it's capable of, you're most likely on the brink of billionaire status. But you still do readings, and you still see clients in a spiritual way. So why do you do that?
I love that question a lot. My soul is that way. I was born into this world that way. I was telling a person yesterday that I had a session with, all I want for the person sitting in front of me is for them to be okay. Why that is, and the sciences attached to it, could be from my life, what happened to me, I don't know. But it's important for me. So it is an energy that's there, it's built inside of me. So innately I'm a healer. I've you know, it's not by luck or chance. I worked out the other day, 25,000 sessions is what I've done. And I'm very proud of that.
25,000.
Yes. If I do the maths over the years and I work out sort of an average, that's quite a lot. So it's definitely not by chance, you know.
Yes.
And I get a really good response from the people. So I needed to create success in life because my children wanted more from life. And the deal with the universe was that I'd go back to healing. So it doesn't matter how successful I am. I'm striving for that, for the close people that are in my life. But I will always, always work in a healing space. And all my business partners in my relative fields, they all get that. And they respect it. Because I've been lucky enough to create a lot of the growth in those spaces. And I say that with absolute humility. Just been lucky enough to know some of the right people to get things going. But I always come back to, I'm going to call it spirit, always. And, you know, it fulfills me big time. It's about, I get fulfilled as well. You know, and I'm just being absolute transparently honest. I get a lot from helping people too.
That's the fulfillment of being a healer, isn't it? That's where you fill your cup.
Yeah. And I started noticing, though, it doesn't matter how successful the person is. I get a lot of business people coming to me, business owners, a lot of really powerful people, because of the trust process. I won't mention names. Look, in this country, it's common knowledge. A lot of the people that I've seen, and they talk openly about it, but I wouldn't do that. But I realized it doesn't matter what level of success you have. Everybody's dealing with something. Everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. And I see somebody because I want to be a better version of myself. And I'm just lucky enough to sometimes see things that they don't see. And when I see that they get it, or they get a level of healing, man, that's a beautiful thing.
Mm.
And it helps them in their life. And my feeling is, if they get help, maybe they'll help other people. Maybe they can spread the light. Or they'll send somebody else to me that's battling with something. Because people don't generally come to me because they're happy.
Yeah.
They come to me because they're dealing with something. Or they've got a problem in their business. Or, they want to increase the energy or something. But it's never normally from a positive space. Look, some people come just because they want to touch up and see what's happening and they want to know how they can grow. But yeah, so it's 100%, doesn't matter what I do, it feeds me, and I love doing it. So wherever I am, whatever I'm doing in the world, I will always fundamentally be a healer, always.
Okay.
And that's the truth. Some people don't understand it, but it's not for everybody to understand. Let's
unpack some of the titles, because you are a medium, psychic, clairvoyant, clairsentient. I want to go through these definitions with you so you can explain the differences.
Okay, so there's many ways that I can explain the different variances, but a psychic will go to a person for a reading and they've got cards and they can actually see and they develop sort of a picture and help people deal with their current lives, patterns. If they're slightly off pattern, they like to get them back on. So, my ex-wife used to say that she's going to get a caravan for me and market me on the side of the road. But that's like a definition of that. So my mom was very much like that. So she was really good as a healer, and she could, she didn't market it, but she had people that she gave counsel to in a psychic way. So psychic is more sort of when you're with the person, you're picking up on things. Clairvoyant very much is like visions and messages. Get a lot of dream messages. Being able to see things kind of like in a picture, like an advert in your mind, like you did the other day. So that's clairvoyancy. When I started my journey coming out of my mom's womb, I was aware of energies. So my mom couldn't see that. So that's definitely more clairvoyant. And I was able to see pictures, and then I started getting messages, which is also clairvoyant. And it can also be clairaudient, so you're hearing.
Okay.
Clairsentient is feeling. So I'm sitting with a client and I get a pain over here. Meanwhile, they've got a problem with their liver.
So it's like an empathetic sensitivity.
100%. And then as I grew on those journeys and I got older and stronger, mediumship just happened. So as my vibration increased, I was sitting in a session and a gentleman came down and he told me his name and what had happened to him. And of course my client understood. And that's how that journey started. So that's mediumship. So basically, I also just want to state, just for the record, when you're born into a family like I was, if there's energy around you, spiritually, and it's bad, you get rid of it. If it's good, you work with it. There's absolutely no gray area. Doesn't matter what religious platform you work with, there's no negative energy that's allowed into that space. So when you work from these spiritual realms and you're connecting, it's from a place of love. And if somebody comes to connect, they're not here just to say hi. There's always functionality in it. So, hi, it's Mark. I had cancer. This is what happened. And they'll, in essence, give you information, like when I met you for the first time. Only you knew those things. So it would be relative to you, and then it adds value. And also you work on that connection. I believe that that's a massive part of society that's missing, that we knew before. A lot of religious texts talk about that being evil or negative, or it's just a negative process, and it's not. My connectivity from a medium perspective with my mom, it's been beautiful. My children know when my mom's around. And it's very valuable information. And it's almost always healing, and it's designed to add value to life. So I just want people to know that, because a lot of people don't understand it, because we're taught that it's negative, and it's actually a very, very beautiful space.
I think we're groomed to fear what we don't understand.
So that is a topic that would be a podcast all by itself.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. How many people do you know that have been sleeping? It feels like something's on their chest and they can't move. You know, and they're freaking out. They think either the devil's on their chest or they're dying. Most of the time, what's happening is your vibration's increasing. And somebody that you love is lowering theirs and you're meeting in the middle. But because we're taught that it's negative, it's fearful, when actually you should relax and know how to work with it. But we lost that science a long time ago. So religion is another whole podcast all by itself. But the way that we were taught and where it comes from and the birth of all those processes and the conditioning since then, it has caused a lot of issues. And I believe over years we've lost our sensitivity. And I think I was lucky enough to be born in a sensitive space, because basically I feel things. That's how come I'm able to do what I do. But yes, we are taught and conditioned big time.
I think you touched on the topic of religion, and I think it's interesting for us to talk about this because it seems, at least in the last few decades, there seems to be a migration from Orthodox religion towards a kind of general spirituality. And I wonder if you see that as well, and what are your thoughts on it?
Most definitely. I had a very interesting chat that I'd like the people to know about, and a very, very powerful Christian lady. I love having these chats. In fact, for you, when next time I have an interview with one of them, it's something you've got to watch, because I ask very interesting questions. There's no ego attached to that. I've got a very close relationship with a rabbi, and we bounce our heads together and we talk and we feed off of each other, and he's open enough to communicate with me. I have many such relationships. But the conversation I had with this particular person, I've been lucky enough to meet some very holy people in my life. Very holy. And I used the example of the Dalai Lama. And I said, if the Dalai Lama is evil, we as a human society are in serious trouble. He's one of the most beautiful humans ever. And he's all about love and God and energy. And he talks openly about it. But because we're so controlled, it's crazy. The most holy places I've been in, the most temples, Buddhic temples I've been in, you can feel the love and the peace. You know, I was in church on Sunday, and Pastor Stone is his name, and I go there because, you know, they're not asking for money, and it's a non-denominational place. And what he told me on Sunday, well, what he told everybody, was absolutely amazing for my life. So there are many names for this, and I'm not going to go into that today, but there is a space in life where people are wanting to grow. And most people don't want to talk about it, but a lot of these religious spaces are very controlled. And people just want to be, and they want to exist, and they want to feel good. And, you know, there's a common message of take what works for you and apply that science to your life. And I promise you it will be good. So if you go back to the source, the true source of all these religious beliefs, you know, I can tell you 12 people that were born on a specific day, that were born of the same mom, that had the same amount of disciples, that went on the same journey. And I believe the big guy's been trying to get that message across for a long, long time. So I've got a massive, massive God belief. Hugely. So a lot of people ask if I believe in God. Absolutely. I see negative and positive energy. So when I went to school, religion actually made sense to me. I actually worked a lot in the Christian faith, and I apply a lot of those sciences to my life. But I wouldn't call myself a Christian.
You're not a religious person per se.
No. I actually know too much about it. A lot of people are scared to investigate it, and again, they'll say that's evil, but it's absolutely not. like the Muslim faith, it's a very practiced faith, and I appreciate that and I respect it. But if you take that faith and you compare it, it's interesting. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, which is 9,000 BC, and you start looking at the history and the science and the efficacy of all of that stuff and the proven facts, it's fascinating, absolutely mind-blowing. If you look at Oppenheimer, who created the atom bomb, and his belief in the Bhagavad Gita, he gave it as gifts to all of his friends at dinner parties. He wasn't too happy with himself because he realized he had recreated what was in that book. So, but again, it's about study and understanding, and I think the more knowledge you have, the better. But the holy place that you must find must just work for you. And I found a lot of beauty in a lot of the different faiths. So the Hindi experience, Hinduism. So my daughters and myself have had Hindu experiences that we physically seen, and it's changed my life. So I've had a Ganesh and a Lakshmi experience that I shared with my children, and we physically saw it. So the Hindi processes make sense to me. A lot of people alive don't understand the soul, for instance. So I can tell you the way that I explain it to a lot of people. If mommy and daddy make you, and that little cell goes into the egg, and the baby starts forming, as it does, where's the soul? It's an interesting question. And go and ask any religious process about that. So the Hindi faith understands that. They understand where the soul comes from. So I could put you into a space, which I haven't done with you yet, and I could put you into a space where you remember being into your mother's womb, and then I could take you to wherever your soul was. That is a science that I developed through my family. I love saying this to people. Whether you believe in past lives or not, to me it's irrelevant. When you experience it and see it for yourself, it's a completely different scenario. So I implore people to investigate it. So there's this general process in life where people are wanting to know. They're wanting to grow. They want to know what's real. So I don't think, if you go to a Buddhist temple and you get peace from that, good for you. If you follow Saraswati, if you follow Osho, they're all beautiful people with amazing messages. But if you look at the message properly, they're all the same, actually. Spoken in different ways, but the message is very similar. If you look at Jesus and Russianish, if you look at where they come from and the essence and the studies, Jesus was a very spiritual guy. He meditated a lot. His life story, if you read that properly and you study it, man, he was a very special guy. I can go into the sciences of the power of that too. Like a lot of times I get a call for people, they're battling. It doesn't matter what their belief is. They've got a malevolent spirit in their home. It's a topic a lot of people don't like talking about. But obviously I know how to work with that stuff. And I can see it. They don't like me very much, that energy. But when you work with powerful names like, for instance, Jesus, and I'm not pushing any faith here, they can't handle it. But it's because it's high vibrational. And negative energy is very low vibrational. So again, if you're walking into a holy place and you feel good and it works for you, good for you. So I think you've got to figure that out. But, if everybody read what Buddhism is, if they just read what it is, I think everybody would become a Buddhist. It's beautiful. It's just a way of life. But people think it's evil. I find it very funny. I mean,
it's funny you have this conflict between the various religions, because almost all of them will believe they have the right information and the other religions may not. But I maybe want to talk about the different philosophies, because you have the Eastern religions. Let's just talk about the common ones, Hinduism, Buddhism, and so on, where philosophies are similar. You believe in reincarnation, eventual spiritual liberation, whether it's nirvana or moksha. And then you have, I suppose they call them Western religions, but they're actually Middle Eastern religions, all the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, where there's a completely different concept. So in the Far East, I suppose you've got this idea of a universal consciousness that we are all part of. But in the Western, Middle Eastern, it's very distinctive. There's God and then there's us, and there's heaven and there's hell, and reincarnation is not something that's believed in. But I think as we trend towards the idea of spirituality, not that I'm pushing that the Eastern had more relevance, but it seems closer to that, the ideas with conventional spirituality.
So, ancient Catholicism did believe a lot in the Eastern philosophies, and very much when Constantine came around and created a lot of that, all of those beliefs were separated. That's what happened. But if you look at really ancient texts, which I've studied implicitly, there was lots of talk in reincarnation. It was confusing people, so they separated.
Okay.
I actually had this conversation recently in great depth, but a lot of the Eastern philosophies, kind of where you were going, they believe in godliness, but they also believe in godliness internally, like being the best version of yourself and increasing and finding the godliness within you. I found that very enlightening, because in spirituality, they call it your higher self. When I'm in a deep level meditation and I'm battling with something, God energy laughs at me and says, listen, Jay, you're battling. What would your higher self do? Or what would your Jesus self do? And that's like the perfect version of yourself, and instantly you'd have the answer. I always say to people, we all know what's right and wrong. We all know, we just don't do it. That's why animals, they're instinctive. When they move through, they just go. Because we have choice, we've got to go through processes when we're there. And then we can come back down. But that's why the religious process for yourself, I call it religiousness. The more centered you are, the better you are. So, and I also just want to chat to you about something else. You can imagine, and it's not a bad thing, I have religious chats every day of my life. So a lot of people come to me for a consult, and they'll say, do you believe in God? And I go, yeah, I believe in God. And I also have people trying to preach to me a lot. Meanwhile, they don't know I could preach their holy book to them. But I just keep quiet, and I don't believe that's right. I believe if you are secure with your belief system, that's good for you. If you want to talk to somebody about it, ask them. But when you're trying to push your beliefs onto somebody else, internally, I really, with all my heart, don't believe that's right. So you investigate, research, find what works for you. Do your best with it. I promise you, I don't think the big guy's going to mind. I really don't believe that. So my God is not a fearful God.
Yeah.
He's not going to, I'm not saying that I don't have respect for God energy, I do. But, for instance, divorce. It's a topic that's widely not, spoken about properly, and I mean this with absolute respect to my ex-wife. I'm very happily divorced. If I was born 50 years ago, I would have had to stick that out. There's no ways my God wanted me to stay there, man, I promise you. And my children are happier, she's married somebody else. She's doing well with her life, and I'm happy for her. Do you know what I mean? It's a religious belief in that is, you sit there, you sort it out, and doesn't matter how unhappy you are, you're going to stay there. Come on, man, on what level is that okay?
Yeah. But just also on you talk about God and God energy, but your perspective of God is not a bearded guy in the sky. It's something completely different.
Yeah, so I've told that to you. That's how I explain it to people. I promise you, God's not sitting in the clouds with a big grey beard looking down on us. It's not like that. I have a way of explaining it to you. The first time that I met God energy, it's a long story to talk about, well, not really. But for the point of this, I'd actually like to discuss that a little bit. So my mom couldn't see spirit. But I told you before that I know when energy is good or bad and how to get rid of negative energy, which has actually become the biggest part of my career. So I had a guide energy with me my whole life, and I knew she was good. But when I connected with her for the first time, I cried. It was so beautiful. But I felt the love. To try and explain that to somebody is quite a difficult thing. But in the Bible, they talk about us not being able to understand God, or we won't be able to comprehend His power. We won't be able to face it. And I get that, because my guide energy is nowhere near God energy's level. Now imagine all the love that comes from. We can't handle it. We don't know how to handle that. So if we're living in a 3-dimensional world, and when we sleep and we connect, we go into a 4th-dimensional world. Through all the years that I've been working spiritually, I've realized heaven, I think, is 7th-dimensional. How do you even comprehend it? Our brains can't comprehend that. I don't think we're meant to understand it. I think one day when we're lucky enough to go there, then we get it. So for me, it's awe-inspiring. It's perfectly powerful energy that our brains can't comprehend. The fact that we're here, just imagine how incredible that energy must be. It's actually mind-blowing. You know, in our human brains, every single thing has got a beginning and an end. That's how we program. But clearly it's not that way. How do you even comprehend that? We're not designed that way. We're not meant to understand it. You know, I would ask all the religious leaders that I've ever met, explain it to me. Explain life and death. Explain the beginning to me. And then we talk about Adam and Eve. Now, like, where did they come from? I need to know. And I think obviously the way that I was born, and a lot of them can't answer those questions, which is why I went on a lot of discovery and I learned.
I think in Orthodox religion, they also don't encourage you to ask the questions, because this is the word, this is the way it's meant to be, and you must believe it because we say so.
Yeah, so look, I mean, if you do the research and you look when Constantine came around, they believed they were doing good. And there was a lot of problems on the planet before that. And if you live your life in a Christian way, let me tell you, if you were a Christian in those days, they would kill you, right? So it was very powerful. So if you live your life according to the good book, you'll live a good life. It's got the 10 rules, the 10 commandments, and they're good commandments, and we should all live our lives accordingly. So they were trying to fix, they were trying to heal, and that book says don't question. We're human beings. You know, but I think the Adam and Eve story speaks for itself with the snake in the tree. I talk to a lot of my clients and friends about this. I believe that energy is what gives us freedom of thought, and we choose, and that's how we learn. I'm not saying it's good.
Do you think it's a literal story or a parable?
I don't think it's literal. I think God's trying to teach us something. Definitely. Because I understand that story. Because that voice in your head often is not your voice. It's designed to get you off center. I wish everybody knew that. Because, you know, the way that I encourage people, if you write down all the honest thoughts that you've got in your head, they're not all good, eh? And I think that's what that story is about. It's trying to teach us that, you know, we do get influenced. There is negative energy. Be aware of it. Live your life accordingly, you know. If you want to go into the deep teachings about that, they call that knowledge, you know. So, but I mean, I feel like that's designed to teach us how to be. I feel like the Christian book, the Bible, is the book that I was born into studying. And it's a code. It's beautiful. I mean, when I read that book, it's like reading a science fiction novel. It's fascinating stories, and they're beautiful stories. And I get them, you know. So yeah, there's lots of parables in there, lots of stories, but I understand the message behind them.
There's an interesting discussion. You mentioned Constantine, and I think Constantine is widely regarded as the person that unified the Romans by accepting Christ. And I think the story was that he had a vision.
In the sky?
Yes. And then defeated his enemy. And sort of brought Christianity to the Roman Empire. But there's a different account, and I don't know if you've heard it or if you've looked into it, but the greatest monument to Constantine is the Arch of Constantine in Rome. And it's a massive structure, and it's built in a section with other monuments built by the Flavian dynasties. And the Flavians were the greatest persecutors of the Christians. And the Arch of Constantine is almost built in the same area, almost as if they're associated. But there isn't any Christian symbology on the arch. There's not a single symbol, not a cross or anything like that. But there are multiple pagan symbols. And when Constantine was in power, the Romans at the time worshipped Apollo, and the other pagans worshipped Mithras, another sun god, as you were. And as the story goes, there are some people that believe that Constantine believed himself to be the next incarnation of Apollo and Mithras, and actually presented himself as God at the time, because when he took over, or when he created Constantinople, the largest religious structure was a massive pillar with a statue of Apollo at the top, but the statue had his face. It was the face of Constantine with the structure for that they used on Apollo's head to resemble sun rays. So,
I'm very, very impressed that you know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome for me. So, in a layman's term, the whole of that book that he created is astrological, very much so. And for instance, the 25th of December, interesting day, but it is the day called the rising of the sun. It's the day when the sun is the closest to the planet. Do you know how many amazing human beings that have been alive have been born on that day? And that was very much Constantine's influence.
Yeah.
The angles of all these big buildings. And by the way, that's pre-Egyptian. If you look at all the Egyptian process, it's also linked directly to that. In fact, if you look at Egyptology and Catholicism and all of them, they all talk to each other, and it's all with that knowledge, just most of them don't know it. In fact, it's a carbon copy of it. So well done. I'm very, very impressed at that. It's not a conversation I have every day.
Yeah.
So good on you. I don't know if you know that or you did your research for this, but that's awesome. That's amazing. Well done.
I find these things interesting, so occasionally we'll look into them.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Let's talk about auras, because you read auras, and I think it's a fascinating topic. I think there are people that are skeptical. Maybe we don't know what they are, but from this point of view, we emit electromagnetic energy. And my question is this part of it? Is an aura your electromagnetic signature or not? What is it exactly?
So I've been writing a book for many, many years, and when I release it, obviously everybody I know will get a copy. The heading's going to be very interesting. I'm not going to say that for now because I want it to be a surprise. But when I was a little man, I was tested. I was investigated by a metaphysical society because this particular society, they prove and disprove things. And I was very involved with a lot of those studies. So they thought I was fake. And today we're really great friends, and I've gone on a very interesting journey with them. So, because I saw auras and chakras, but I didn't just see it on humans, I see it on things and animals and in nature. So I'm fascinated with nature. I know spirit communicates with us through nature, but it is electromagnetic. It is energy. It's why you like certain people and don't like certain people. You can feel that energy. It's got a lot to do with your auric energy and what you're carrying. And it's an interesting thing. You know when you see the heat coming off of a road?
Yes.
When you start seeing auras, that's what it looks like. And it's an energy. It's frequency and it's vibration. Kind of like if someone's really angry and they're trying hard to keep their cool, but you can feel it. It's energy. So, by the way, auras today are an absolute science. It's not just something people talk about. It's proven quite a while ago already. So that's absolute science fact. In fact, that's why they're quite interested in me. So the way that I explain it to people is we've all cried. I've told you guys this as well. We've all cried. It's not nice, but you get a lump in your throat. That's why I'm fascinated with medicine, actually. That's what got me into the medical stuff. Because there's no medical proof of it, but you can feel it. That's your emotional chakra that's activating. A heartache is a common one. It's not nice, but you can feel it. Especially heartache. But you can also feel the love as well. Butterflies in your stomach, doesn't matter what equipment they put there medically, they're not going to see anything. Headaches, back pains, all those kinds of things, it's all energy that's attached. So when I'm sitting with a person and I look at them, I can really see what they've been through in life. I can see by looking at them, and I've learned to turn that into a career, actually. So it's science now, which is great. So people that have got disbelief in auras, I suggest they need to do their homework properly, because it's been proven a long time ago.
So we spoke a bit about auras and what they are. What are chakras?
So they're energy centers. So those emotions that you feel, and they're concentrated energy centers, basically. So I spoke to you earlier on about your crown chakra being high. That's obviously connection to source and to spirit and that kind of thing. This has got a lot to do with third eye. This has got a lot to do with emotions. Obviously, heart has got to do with feelings and love. And then sacral, solar plexus kind of mesh together. It's like where you carry your emotions. Your base chakra has got a lot to do with your day-to-day physical stuff. Most human beings operate with lower chakras, unfortunately. We should all strive to get to the higher ones. But that's sort of, there's lots of other dimensions and lots of add-ons to that, but that's the basis of it.
And how would you work to improve their function or clear them, or do you even need to? What does one do in the ordinary course of one's life?
That's a great question, actually. No one's ever asked me that. So it's actually huge. Everybody should work with it, because if you think about it logically, if you're in a negative environment situation, you get affected, that energy sits. So the best way that I can explain it, if you've got a blockage in your heart chakra, in my family we call that thing a shield. It's normally from trauma, but you don't do anything about it. And 10, 15 years later you have a heart attack and something happens. God forbid, but it happens all the time actually. And then the family goes and say, what happened? And the doctor says, we don't know. It's energy that sits there, and over time it affects you. So you should absolutely work with it. That's why grounding is so imperative. It's a cliche thing, but you said you want to go for a walk on the promenade just now. That's grounding. You're connecting with that prana energy. Prana is a Buddhic term, but it means life force. It's healing. That's why when people come to the coast, they feel better. That's why the people down here are more chilled. So like nature, energy, grounding. I tell everybody as a joke to go and hug trees, but it's actually true. I mean, tree huggers, they must be very grounded. At the very least, take your shoes off and walk around barefoot. Try walk outside. I know it's colder now, but it's really good to do that. Prayer, meditation is key. Salt baths. If you've got a really good healer, because of the work I do, I try and see a good healer as often as I can.
What would be a healer, I think?
So Reiki guys learn to work with energy. I've just found a new one now that works a little bit yogically, and she does energy clearing, takes negativity off. There's many different versions of it, but somebody that's good at clearing you. It's called clearing your energy. So some of them work with hands, some of them just work with energy, but it is a real science too.
You mentioned grounding, and I think grounding is something that's fascinating because it's something that sounds quite hippie, go ground yourself in nature and so on. But there was a documentary that I watched and they spoke about the science of it, which I thought was really fascinating. And the way they explained it is that essentially our bodies are like antenna, and we absorb energy, and we're surrounded by electrical fields, whether it's the radiation from your phone or the power lines or sunlight or whatever. We're constantly receiving energy, but because we started wearing rubber-soled shoes, we don't discharge the excess electrons into the ground. So if you take sunlight, for example, the photons come to our atmosphere, they get ionized in the atmosphere, so they get split up, and then I think it's the electrons that come down and they get absorbed into your body. And one of the leading causes of aging and sickness, they say, is oxidative stress. And what is oxidative stress? It's when a free radical, which is, I think, an electron, will disturb a stable bond, pull off another electron, and in that process create another free radical. And the documentary on grounding suggests that if you walk around barefoot, open ground, you instantly equalize with the electrical potential of the earth, because you discharge those excess electrons instantly, because the earth is constantly in equilibrium with all the electrical energy. And we were part of that for thousands of years because we didn't have shoes, right? Mm. And then we started wearing shoes and we stopped the conductivity.
I'm also fascinated with circadian rhythms. I know you know a little bit about that. I mean, you do some sun gazing, not looking directly at the sun. Mm. And the way that you just explained the science with the sun's rays coming into our planet. I mean, we've got not the color of your eyes, the white of your eyes has got receptors. Mm. You wake up in the morning and you get that morning light in your eyes. You've got a clock inside of us, circadian rhythm, and it gets that going. You know, in the ancient times, there was no TV or anything. That's what happened, and you were very much in tune with the planet. Sun starts coming down, your body automatically knows. It's very grounding. It's all part of it. It's called lux, and it's really good. So the more connected we are to nature in every platform, our bodies are like biological clocks connected to everything, and it makes sense, you know. So it's like if you hop on a horse and you concentrate on that feeling, it's very grounding. We're just quite disconnected from it because of the craziness of life. I've been lucky enough to swim with dolphins. I love scuba diving because you're in nature. You know, that's why I want to free dive, actually. Yeah. So that feeling, it's really amazing. You come out of that water and you feel like the weight's off of you, and the energy's just great. So it's such a big part of life, and I think it's not by choice. I think if we all had a choice, we'd all live by the ocean. You know, but life happens. So it's important to find the balance between the two, as naturistic as you can be.
I think there's something equalizing about the electrical potential with the water and also the salt, because I know you use salt extensively. Yes. Maybe you can explain why.
So, sure, it's also a multidimensional question, but it's obviously a high element, but it's very powerful spiritually. Salt, in essence, gets rid of negative energy as well. But it's got a lot to do with vibration. It's got a high vibration. Negative energy is a low vibration. But it's elemental. It's natural. It's great. The more natural the salt, coarse salt, phenomenal. I use a lot of coarse salt every single day. So you put some of that in your bath, get some essential oils, and you for away. Like you guys are lucky enough to go into the natural element.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how cold it is, you should get in there every day.
Yeah.
If I was here, I would promise you. Even Cape Town, I get in the water. I'm used to it now because I ice bath, but it's great. The energy, not just the fact of swimming in there, but it cleanses you. It cleanses the negativity out of your aura. That's why you feel more peaceful. There's no doubt that you guys down here are a lot more chilled than we are in Joburg.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. It's got a lot to do, I believe, with the salt in the water, in the air, in the atmosphere. Very much so.
Let's talk about the energy. You touched on it a few times, but we are speaking about energy and we're talking about life force, and at the same time we're talking about prana, and I think different cultures call the same thing by different names.
Yes.
So you've got prana, ki, chi,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So what is this? How would you define it?
So you're a martial artist, I know, and so I think the best way, like Bruce Lee is a good way of explaining that. There's lots of film and studies done on him, but he knew how to channel his life force energy, you know. And those guys go fly. I tell all my daughter's boyfriends that. I channel my chi. But it's life force. So it's a life force in us. And again, all those spiritual sciences make that strong. So there's many different ways of channeling it and learning how to work with it. But it's life force. Again, medically, a lot of times people, you know, your soul energy moves this way. So it's sad to talk about, but a lot of times people just die. It's because their life force is gone. And medically, they're okay. The doctors don't understand it. So it's important to keep your life force high. That's why you've got to have a balance in life. But every single faith that you can think of has got a version of life force spoken about in a different way.
It's almost like thinking of the current within your body, because we conduct electricity, right? Energy, that's what we do.
Absolutely.
And I imagine if you equate life force to the current running through your body, it's not something that people measure. You don't check your voltage on a day-to-day basis.
Well, it's quite interesting. We spoke about chakras. Now, one of your chakras are blocked. That chi is not going to work through you. It's blocked. So it causes issues. A lot of times people start battling with their mentality, actually, as a result of it. Way off center, can't retain information, just feeling anxious. A lot of times it's spiritual. Go for a good clearing. Get some grounding done and you'll feel a lot better. But it's a great way of explaining it. It's like a current through your body. And you can learn how to work with it. It's a gift we all have.
So if you did think of it that way, and I'm not saying we have to, but you would then have positive energy. But what then would be negative energy that you talk about?
So, in layman's term, if you could go into a pub on the side of the street and you could see energy the way that I do, you'd see things like ectoplasm, residual energy, sticky energies, entities, all those kinds of things. So that energy is attracted to high vibration, positive energy. So you walk in there, it's going to be attracted to you, and you come out of there. Next thing you know, after a couple of days, you're feeling off center. Your relationship starts battling. You've got no drive. You're battling just day to day. The problem is it always gets worse. So what's happening is that energy is feeding off of your vibration. It's always parasitic. It takes your life force. So negative energy, negative environments, negative friendships, negative people, places, situations, substance, visual stuff, you know, it affects us all, especially here. It affects all of that. So it's important to keep your frequency high.
How do you know when you're exposed to negative energy?
So I think inherently we as humans all know, but we choose to not believe that things are negative for us. I personally went through a big mission to get rid of everything in my life that was causing. I actually asked the universe to help me because I knew something was off center. I wasn't completely aware, and in 1 month, a lot of my staff complement changed. I was seeing things clearly. Long-standing relationships changed. People that were taking advantage of me. I exposed a lot of that energy. So that's like negative energy affecting us, you know. So don't go to that dark, dingy pub. Don't put negative substance in your body. Put beautiful people around you. Do what's right for you. And you'll find that competitive repetition of that, being focused on that drive in a good space, that'll keep your frequency good. You walk into a place you're feeling negative and off center, contact someone like me, and I'll help you.
What would be the consequences of ignoring that sign that you're exposed to it?
Relationship breakdown, medical, health, depression. definitely anxiety, anger, all those low vibrational, ego, control. A lot of times people are battling the spiritual. It's like substance, pornography, those kinds of things coming, messing around, lies, cheating, abuse. Those patterns start coming in. And it's not conducive for good behavior or patterns, frequencies, that kind of thing. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm on a big mission. I'm doing my best to try and keep that stuff out. And I think as human beings, we should make that a hobby. We should make ourselves a hobby. We should make ourselves a hobby to be the best versions of us, to try. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be my best. Got a long way to go.
It's a process, right?
Yeah.
I think as long as we all try to take a step forward every day and not take a step back, we're probably heading in the right direction.
And it's interesting because that voice with negative energy, that voice in your head gets stronger. You don't feel like getting out of bed to exercise. You don't feel like studying. You don't feel like working. You don't feel like any of those things. You're just existing. That's what that energy wants.
You get trapped in yourself.
Yeah. I had a chat just before I saw you today. There's a very beautiful human that I'm helping in the mining space, and he's the kind of guy that when he's very successful, lots of people are going to benefit. The amount of things going wrong in that guy's life, it's just crazy. And he's beautiful. He's got a big God belief, so he comes from the old India Kerk Afrikaans. He's a quality guy. And that attachment, so I help him spiritually. But he's been a bit naughty, we haven't spent time. So he's been busy with his own space. But we kind of keep him in check. He does his work and he's good, It's like Reese. Reese, a very brilliant, high vibrational person. But Reese battles spiritually, not physically. The more clear his energy is, the better he does. So think of negative energy. It's designed to block us. It's designed to affect us. It's massive in business. Huge. Like a big client of mine, my biggest client, actually, he's been with me for 20 years now. He said, Jay, it's actually how my clearing started, but it's very relative to this conversation. He said, there's something's wrong here. So I gave him the stuff to do, what he needs to do in his business, and I gave it to him and he did it. And he said, but I don't know how to do it. Can you come? And I did, and I walked around with him and I said, man, there's energy there. This is going, these guys are stealing from you. This is going on. And obviously then he did his research, and obviously all the stuff came out, and obviously got rid of a lot of people. And the business is flowing. Very successful today. But that's kind of how it works. Now those people that were in that environment, you do the research, there's affairs happening there, there's theft. You look at the phones and the stuff that they're looking at. It's not good stuff. So, it's impossible to live your life like this and high vibrational all the time, but it's an unfortunate, so that's my mission this lifetime, is to try and help people to get into that state of higher vibration. I'm trying for myself and for other people.
Do you think that we have guardian energy, whether I think people would call them spirits or angels, or do we have protective energies out there?
So I don't think it, I know it. Absolutely, 100%. So the energy that's responsible for everything in my life is that. Unfortunately, the word guide and guardian angels have been massively misused. So it became vogue to have a red Indian guide or an Egyptian guide. So people would come to me for a session and say, I've got a guide. I said, it's a red Indian. Geez, you're so good at it. I said, no, but I hear it every day. But they choose us. We don't choose them. And it's very, very much in my book, actually. It's that voice that tells you to drive home a different way. That's sort of a layman version of having that connection. Drive home differently. If you're thinking about somebody, pick up the phone. That's where that stuff comes from. When you've avoided an accident or you avoid a hectic situation, very often it comes from that. So it is a protective energy. I call it godly energy. I'm convinced that my energy is angelic. There's no way, like I said, there's no gray area. Energy is positive. But that love frequency, they're there to protect us. There's no doubt. And I think the trick is to get your frequency as high as possible so that you can almost ascend. I think that's the true essence of life. I think we forgot that. But we're here to actually ascend. So that's what they help us with.
Some time back, it was actually through Riza. Riza recommended that I read The Journey of the Soul. And it was a fascinating book. And I think it would be interesting to talk about what the soul is and soul groups, and how you see all of that.
So I can tell you 3 things that I know for sure. I have told you this before, but I want everyone to know it. All the time that I've been alive, I've realized these 3 things. We choose to come here, we choose our lessons, and we bring people into that equation. And my guide calls it the soul's portfolio. The only thing that we take with us one day when we're lucky enough to ascend is our memories, our experiences. So our souls come to learn. But within that equation, think about choosing to come here. You choose similar soul groups or coming from similar soul groups. You get twin flames, and you get twin souls, and you get all those kinds of different frequencies. But you get new souls, developed souls, old souls, lots of different frequencies. And those souls are just souls that have come to learn. Some have learned a lot more than others. It's interesting, my guide told me something the other day. She said, as advanced as medical science gets, and you can imagine 1,000 years from now, it's going to be very advanced. Medical science will never be able to understand the dimensions of a soul, ever. They'll know it's there. They'll even know where it is, but they won't understand it. So, yeah, we all have a soul.
You mentioned your guide. Maybe for people that don't know you, tell us about your guide.
So my guide, her name is Rantana. She chose me. She did walk around here 20,000 years ago, but her soul has evolved to a form of guide, and then she chose me. That's quite a... So I know our souls choose, and we've got to grow through different levels. And the level that she's on now was to assist me through life, definitely to help other people. But like I said before, she's got like a very angelic vibe. She's massive and very powerful. So when I walk into a very evil, negative space spiritually, I've got no issues walking in there because of that. And people ask me all the time, but isn't it scary? Like what you see and experience, and I'm not scared at all because of that. So she's my protector, and she's been with me since I was a little guy. I really believe many, many, many times this lifetime I should have been dead. I know. And that's why I wrote the book, actually. And I owe it all to her. My career, everything that I've achieved in my life. Most of the time I was just winging it, man. And I know it was her guiding me. So I'm very grateful for that. She's commonly known in my family, especially with my children. So, yeah.
How did you make that connection?
So when I was a little man, I could always see her, but I couldn't see her face. So that's why when people tell me they can see their guides, but they can't see their faces, I attach value to it. And I also understand that from a soul perspective. But she was always there. And she was always guiding me, protecting me. And I had a very strange situation. I don't talk about it much. But again, in my family, we know about the cowboy man. So this was a negative energy that was affecting me when I was a little man. And Rantana smashed him. It was an evil spiritual energy that definitely didn't want me doing what I do today. I know that now. But and that's become the biggest part of my career. That's why I get rid of negative energy. So yeah, that's kind of how that works.
We touched a little before on the idea of reincarnation past lives. I know you do past life regressions, and there are cultures that firmly believe in the heaven and hell concepts, but what do you feel is the reality?
So it was explained to me when I was younger, it's not reincarnation, but it's like that. So our souls come here to learn. I think the ultimate goal is for us to all get into that nirvana or heaven state. And I think it's got a lot to do with vibration, and when we are ascended enough, we can actually get there. So our souls come here to learn. That's why it's hard here. It's not hard there. Affectionately, I say, if we could all commit suicide and end up there, we'd all be doing it, but it doesn't work that way. We've got to go through our stuff here, and we come here to learn. So that is what happens. Just a lot of people don't understand it or don't want to understand it. But, I can tell you such beautiful stories, but I don't want to talk about their personal experiences. My favorite readings are when the wife sends the husband and he doesn't believe in this. And he says to me, listen, I don't know why I'm here. I don't believe in this stuff. So secretly inside I'm like, I'm ready, and I'm excited for it. He doesn't know that, or she doesn't know that, of course. And in those times, what they do is straight away afterwards, they phone their wife or their partner. How does he know the stuff? Did you tell him? How does he know? And they get something from it. Then they realize, hey, there is something else here. And then they get excited. And sometimes those regressive processes, they are forced to see, hey, there is something else here. This is why I don't like this certain person, or I don't like this, or so I'll give you an example. The first time I went scuba diving, I thought I was going to die. I didn't know I was claustrophobic. I didn't know. So I was in Thailand on an island called Koh Tao. Beautiful. And I thought, I always wanted to try the scuba diving thing. I snorkeled right around the island. The guy said, okay, Jay, it's enough now. Come, you're going to scuba dive. So I went down there. I was like, I couldn't breathe. So I knew something was wrong. And that night I did my own regression. And in my last life I drowned. I was a woman. And I used to take food off the floor in the ocean. And I would, they would take their breath and they'd go down, and they could spend a long time there. Interestingly enough, I can hold my breath this lifetime for a ridiculous amount of time. So, again, that's why I want to free dive. But I brought through that energy with me. Today I've done hundreds of dives, scuba diving, but I was able to work through it. So these guys that are skeptical and they come to me and they have a regressive process and they see it, they come from a staunch religious perspective and they go, wow, okay, now I understand. Because your fear of death goes instantly and you understand there's something else here. There's something more.
Do you find their belief system shifts once they've been exposed to that?
Most definitely. Instantly. Because it's real. It's tangible. You can work with it. I had some stuff happen to me this lifetime that I really battled with, especially in my marriage, things that I did. It's very deeply personal to me, but after that I needed to understand it, and regression helped me with that. I went back and I saw the same person that I was exposed to, and it made me understand. And I came out and went, I was meant to learn that, now I understand. So yes, it shifts a lot for the person that's in that space.
One of the topics that I think will be very interesting for people is you did readings for Nelson Mandela for 12 years. Tell us more about that.
So I was very lucky to be introduced to him. And it's going to be interesting in my book, though. It's going to be in there. But that opened up a whole lot of doors. So I developed a relationship with him, and a lot of people like him through that. But I got to understand the man a lot more. So very powerful being, very powerful energy. I find his life story fascinating, from where he came from and what he learned and what he developed into. Full integrity, but He wasn't always like that. Definitely. I mean, history shows that. But anyway, I've been very fortunate with a lot of the people I'm currently working with. I've met a lot of amazing people like him. Obviously can't talk about the details of that,
course.
but that opened up a lot of doors for me for it. And I'm eternally grateful for that. Eternally grateful. So yeah.
What kind of a man was he?
Salt of the earth. Powerful. You knew that his presence was there. It was obviously very confidential, his life process, but he as a person was very respectful. Mr. Jason is what he called me. You know, he was just a nice guy.
You obviously helped him with certain things in his life, but what did you learn from him?
So I've been lucky enough to be able to write about that. That's going to come out in my book. But I learned a lot of my communication with him was reflective. So his life story, the battles that he faced and everything, I related to a lot, but how he turned that into success. You know, he felt like he didn't have enough time. I always feel like that. And he was very, very good, you know, with giving advice and communication, always. You know, I found a lot of these powerful people, they're very good at giving information. And it's most valuable. So just a really powerful guy. But I mean, I think his life, he learned humility is the right word, because he was prepared to die for his belief system. Fully prepared to die for it. And he was causing a lot of damage out there, but he believed in that, and he was a fighter, and he was strong legally, he understood that. And he armed himself with all of that information, and then he became like this. But very wise.
Yeah.
He was an incredibly wise human being. So, anyway.
You deal with a number of powerful people. You count heads of state amongst your clients, the business elite. How does this happen?
So, a long time ago, I started attracting powerful business people. So, I battled with the financial element in my career because of what I do. I just want to help people, and it was explained very powerfully to me about energy exchange in a strong meditation. And when I started my career, there was a lady, and she was charging, in those days, she was charging 3,000 Rand for a reading and 5,000 Rand for a channeling, and I was charging 250 Rand. But she heard about me. She asked to see me, so she was like the person in those days. And she called me to come to her, and I did. And you'll understand where I'm going with this now. And then she said, I heard about you in the spirit, which I now know wasn't true. And she said, I want you to do a reading for me. So I did. And she cried, and she benefited from it. She said, right, I'm going overseas. I'm going to give you my whole client base, but you have to increase your rate. And I said, no, I've got a problem with that. So my PA, she was actually my manager and my tour manager at the time, because I've been touring for quite a long time now. And she was listening to this whole thing. So when I went back, she started booking me out at 700 Rand, and I didn't know. And in those days, I was booked for a couple of weeks. And you know, when she booked me out at 700 Rand, what happened was, all of a sudden, for being booked for 3 weeks to a month, I was all of a sudden booked for 4 months. And I didn't get any of her clients. In fact, she stayed. But what happened then, in that time, it was almost like I had faith in myself, and my energy grew, and I started attracting a lot of professional people. It's why I got my MBA and why I'm studying my doctorate now and all that stuff, because I needed to be able to talk that language. And I enjoyed business. So I guess the universe wanted me to communicate with business people and business alike. And funny enough, a lot of those people that I'm lucky enough to know have opened up doors for me now in particular businesses. So I think that's how that happened. I think it's the only way that I can equate to that. And of course, when I saw one political person, I managed to see a lot of their associates as well.
What do you, I mean, dealing with different heads of state, for example, these are people in immense positions of power. Do you find common traits between them?
Perhaps in their countries, yes, but not generally. So I've done a lot of work in England, in America like that, even France, lots in Africa. I find in Africa the consciousness is actually similar, but not really. They've all got their own sort of belief systems. Perhaps in that particular country it's similar, but very, very much I'm tasked often with people of power that are asking me to keep an eye on what's happening.
Okay.
And so then I get to understand the different personalities and energies and what they're getting up to, and that's always different, generally. The negativity is the same, and the influence is the same, but their consciousness is a little bit different.
So I think with politicians are interesting because they say a lot of things that they sometimes don't mean, and they can rationalize when things don't go as they projected. And it's an interesting one. I was thinking about it the other day, but they're almost like the economists of legislature, if you accept my definition of an economist. So an economist for me is someone who can tell you today why his prediction of yesterday didn't come true. And
Yes.
And the politicians are like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, that's true. That's very, very relevant. There's some amazing leaders though. There's one in particular at the moment in Africa. He's a really, really powerful man. A lot of the the global elite in government, I'm talking about the biggest, they love him. And he's an African president. And he doesn't work like that. And if there's trouble in a lot of the African states, that they call on him. So
I think I know who you're talking about.
So that, it's interesting, but he's, that the world needs a lot more of that.
What do you think the public perception would be for heads of state and business elite to be associated with a psychic?
So I think historically the general consensus straight off the bat is not good. Until they've had a conversation with me, it's very different. Generally, a lot of these guys, they don't care. They like the association. In fact, the communication is, if you don't like Jason, what are you hiding? Why don't you like him? And it's true. If somebody can't look me in the eyes or have a conversation with me, what are they hiding? It's quite interesting because they can't hide it from me, and that's why they like me. And of course, it's very confidential. So I develop a sacred space with everybody I work with. So the general consensus is from the get-go is not positive. I have, in my opinion, actually it's not my opinion, I think he's one of the most successful people in this country. I've been working with him for 17 years now. I see him every single month, sometimes more. And when I walk around with him in his business, it's very interesting because they all want to know, why does he have faith in me? But they don't know the years that we've been working together, what we've gone through. And so I'll tell him, that person doesn't like me, that one's insecure with me, and he investigates it. And if he's got an issue with someone in particular, he tells them to come and talk to me because he wants to know. So the people that I'm working with, they don't care what anyone else thinks. but generally,
there's skepticism from the public.
yeah.
Yeah.
I must also tell you though, I really enjoy that a lot. You know, so from when I was a little man, I was either this amazing little psychic kid or the devil's child. That's how it was. And so, I mean, they try to do exorcisms on me and all sorts. And I was like, what are you guys doing? I'm not evil, I promise you. And so Afrikaans person, cry out, devil, cry out. But anyway, I'm used to it. I'm very used to it. I'm used to people throwing religion at me. I'm used to all of it, but I'm very, very comfortable with me and skepticism because I'm centered and I know.
Yeah.
For instance, I can tell you there's not many people that know about death properly. I do. I know exactly what happens. And I understand it. So I can put my hand on my heart and tell you I'm comfortable. Physically, I worry about my children, but like I know that. I know what happens. I understand the process. I know what happens with our soul energy. A lot of people don't get that. So what I'm trying to say is I'm comfortable with my belief system. And I can also talk to anyone. So it doesn't matter whether the president or the guy sweeping the floor. I can connect with that frequency because everybody's important. But these powerful people, they can't keep anything from me. And when they're comfortable with that, it actually becomes a powerful tool. If you think about it.
Yeah. You've helped the police. You've solved crimes with your gift. Let's talk about some of those stories.
So I worked very much on the Lee Matthews case. That was my first case. It was by default. I very quickly detached myself out of the case, but they phoned me live on air on 7:02. So I've got a rule, if I'm busy with somebody, my door's closed, no one's allowed to come in. So when my manager, this is the same lady that increased my rate, by the way.
Yes.
When she opened my door, I knew it was something serious. And she said, Joe, I need you now. You've got to come on the phone. So they phoned me live on air on 7:02. And of course, the whole family was there and everything. And they said, Joe, we've heard about you. We're not getting anywhere with this case. And I helped them. I was lucky enough to help them. And I pointed them in the right direction. And a lot happened, so I detached very quickly from that because as beautiful as it is, it comes with a lot of negativity as well. But that's how my relationship with the police started and with certain investigators. And then I still do it, but very confidentially. I don't like anyone knowing about it. The last case that I did successfully, I battled with it very much actually. It was very, very hard for me because it was to do with a little girl. And it was successful, but it was hard. And I've done it a lot, so, you know, in my mind it was my way of giving back. And I was able to. Also, my life got really busy, so to be able to do that kind of work, you've really got to be like this. It's really got to be peaceful around you, and you can't have too much interference. And for a while, my life hasn't really catered for that, but there was a time where I could actually focus a lot on that. Perhaps when I'm free of thought, I can do that again. But it also took a lot out of me, to be honest with you, and I don't mean that in a selfish way. I'm no use to anybody if my spiritual energy is low. But the last one affected me badly, and I haven't done anything since then. Although we solved the case, it was tough.
It's demanding. Yeah.
Not only that, I saw everything. So that, you know, the fact that there are people out there, you know, anyway.
Is that the more frightening realization of what people are capable of?
Yes. Very much so. You know, like the Lee Matthews story, I mean, straight away I knew who did it, but it was the pastor's son, so they didn't believe me. But the stuff that happened there was not normal. Like, there's a lot of detail there that's not even spoken about, but that was definitely influenced and attached, and it's just not normal.
In cases like that, where you have, I suppose, something that's really perverse, the perpetrator, is that a damaged human being? Is there a negative force? What do you think?
I think there's always a negative force. I believe it's negative entity and influence. For the sake of this podcast, I'll give you a really good example. The church my ex and I used to go to, a beautiful family, very successful family, God-loving family, very, very successful. And the father of the family developed a cocaine habit, just like that. Clean human being, didn't drink anything. And literally snorted his whole life away, lost his family, lost all of his business, lost all of his money. Once he lost the last cent, all of a sudden he didn't have that addiction anymore. I believe it was a parasitic energy that was feeding off of him. And just like that, you get these different negative influence or energies that affect your humanness in certain ways. And it happens to all of us, by the way. But sometimes it's very extreme. A lot of these cases that I work on, you can definitely pick up negative spiritual influence. Definitely. There's no doubt. Because often it's not normal human behavior. There's no doubt. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tough one, but it's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Are you familiar with Alison Dubois, a medium? Yeah? They based a TV series of her work with the police. I think it was in Arizona, something like that.
So I've been asked many times to do that. But I like this. I don't want the TV show to be about me. I don't want that. That's good if people benefit from that, and that's really good. But I have heard of that. So when I did the Lee Matthews case, something very powerful happened to me in a very negative way. There were certain people that were asking me to help them that were not from love and light. And I realized that my family's safety was more important. So that's why I don't do those things. Not anymore, anyway.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had spoken before about dreams.
Yes.
And there are times when you can have a dream of an occurrence and then it happens. Or you dream about an affliction with someone and you make them aware of it, and then they get tested and they realize something was actually wrong. What's happening in these situations?
So I've realized that when we sleep, we're going into an astral space, which is fourth dimension. So science has proven that there is a fourth dimension, but they don't know what it is. And it makes sense because we're three-dimensional. How do you explain what fourth dimensional is? There's no equipment to explain that. Just as you can't explain it when you're going in there, there's no such thing as time. So you can go forwards and backwards and you're retaining certain bits of information. But I think it's really important to take cognizance of that information because we're getting messages. Sometimes we might battle with interpretation, but like yourself, if you're lucky enough to be able to interpret that, I know you've got that ability, you have to listen to it. So my youngest daughter is very much like that. When she dreams something about me, I'm in full attention because it's relative. And also it's very clairvoyant, by the way. Clairvoyancy is like dreams and visions. And you get a lot of that in your dreams. It's very clairvoyant. If you learn how to interpret them, both for yourself and for other people, it's really powerful. So I do believe we get messages. And I do believe it's also not time. So kind of like deja vu. You know, you've been there before. I had that when I was in France. All the time. I've definitely lived there. There's no doubt. I knew my way around there, man. And it was great. Maybe me and my girls walked a bit too much, but it was awesome. But I think it's all relative, and I think it's the same thing. So, whether we can increase our vibration when we're sleeping somehow, and spirit can communicate with us. That's one way. Or ourselves. You've heard of astral traveling, I'm sure. it's 100% real. Your soul's going somewhere and you're learning stuff. You know, you wake up like that and your soul comes back. Just a lot of people don't understand it. So we are, after all, spiritual beings on a human journey. There's no doubt. So somehow that soul and that spirit is connecting with things and bits of information. We need to learn how to plug into that for sure. It's definitely, so keeping a notebook next to your bed when you wake up, especially when you wake up in the middle of the night and you write it down, you'll forget in the morning.
Yeah.
I must tell you, one of my favorite stories about that, I still want to regress myself to that point. I was 9 or 10 years old, and probably the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me, I needed to know how we got here, and I needed to know about life. I was one of those kids. But you can imagine the way that I was born and the family I was born into. And I'll never forget, I saw all the planets turning, and then I saw cells, and I saw we were all connected, and I was like, I got it. And I just instantly felt this peace. I was like, I've got to tell my mom in the morning. And I forgot. But I remember I had the answer to life there.
Yeah.
So I must go back to that. But then I was definitely in that state in between sleep. You know, like when you're falling asleep, something was happening there. And I think those are very valuable times in between there. So keep a notebook next to your bed.
Yeah, I did for a while, and I was making notes, and I actually looked back and I read over the notes, and there were dreams that I had forgotten. And then I looked back at them, and they had so much meaning and significance at the time. Because as you know, I've had this phenomenon since I was young, and my mom has it. And at that stage, what happened in that dream was my mom's partner at the time. I dreamt of him, and I dreamt that he went to the bathroom and to pee, and there was blood in the toilet. So I phoned my mom and I said I had this dream about him, and this is what happened. So she sent him the message, and that morning he had gone to the bathroom and he peed, and there was blood in the toilet. So he went to the doctor, and he had some crystals in his kidneys or something like that. He had to get checked out. But these things have happened like all my life. So
firstly, that's clairvoyant, definitely. And secondly, I think you were very astral there. You were definitely astral traveling and seeing that. And it's always preventative, eh? So it's for the greater good and for help.
You're right, yes.
So you need to tell those people, like if you see someone having an accident or something happens, you got to pick up the phone and phone them. Because often they're like, shit, that person had an accident and I dreamt it. You must always communicate that.
And somehow it happens, and you kind of know when it's real and when it's just a dream, right? So we were talking like this about astral travel, but maybe to explain to someone who's hearing it for the first time, what exactly would that be?
I think in layman's term, when you sleep, your soul goes and travels. A lot of times people tell me they can't remember their dreams. They're astral, definitely. It's interesting to plug into that because there's ways of remembering that and techniques to work with that. But you know, if you in your dream are flying somewhere or cruising down a pathway, you know, generally you are astral traveling. You know, that where you're falling asleep like that and you get a fright, you're starting to astral travel, but everyone gets scared and they come out of it. You must just go with it, you know. So your soul's going on some kind of journey. It's much more powerful than us.
Yeah.
So it's exploring. I've got a whole lot of theories and stuff that I'm working on at the moment with that, to be honest. My own theory that no one on this planet has spoken about yet. I'm busy working on it. It's got a lot to do with that. It's got a lot to do with physical experiences that people are having that I believe are coming from other people's soul experiences from somewhere else on the planet. I've got a lot of work that I've done and I've put pen to paper on it. But documented stuff that's a reality. It's quite interesting. Kind of like a kid that tells his mom, a little baby, hey, I've died before and this was my name before. And they research it and it's happened, and there's no ways this kid could know.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, I was buried there, and then they found the body.
Yeah.
So I'm working on stuff like that from a different perspective, got a lot to do with souls and what we're talking about now.
There's some interesting, very interesting stories about that. I know there's a researcher in the US that works just with these kids and has worked with thousands of these different cases. I think it's a documentary on Netflix, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. But
So-
it's fascinating.
So the book that Reza gave you,
Yes.
started that. So he's the one that started that. And he realized that's real, past lives and things. And the evidence was overwhelming. So I always say to people, I like it when you can prove things. And, that guy regressed somebody into another whole life. And then he documented everything, did the research, and it was real. I love that stuff, especially for the skeptics.
Yeah. We touched on what we were going to head into because you mentioned the skeptics. So, would you have a message for people watching this that are skeptical?
Yeah, so I've realized that skepticism. So I mean, sure, I can talk to you about this for a long time, but everybody. I've done many readings, for example, for people that tell me that they're atheists. Most of them aren't. They realize in the reading, hey, there's something else going on here. So I think it's about self-discovery. People that are skeptical of me, if they haven't had a conversation with me, or met me, or know me, or experienced me, that's from my personal experience, then experience that, and then give it a bash. Or don't be scared to investigate. Work with facts. It's okay to question, but don't sacrifice your own investigation based on what you think. Because the biggest lesson I learned in life is what I thought life was supposed to be, I was wrong, and I had to be humble about that, because I lived a life that I thought was right based on the skills and the tools that I had. I had to dig deep, be honest with myself, and realize, hey Jay, you're doing damage, you're causing damage, you've been damaged. Learn from it, and my own beliefs and stuff I had to research. It's why I educated myself. I needed to learn. Most of these people that are skeptical are uneducated, but in the right way. So I can tell you, I'm skeptical of my industry, but it's because of how I was born.
Yeah.
It's because of who I am. I've actually never found somebody like me that I've been to, that I've had a comfortable spiritual experience with. I've never done it. That's just my truth. Some of them know who I am, and I know a lot of the international powerful people. There's one guy from the UK that I do connect with conversationally, and we feed off of each other, but I'm skeptical in general. First lady I went to told me I'd be a steel merchant. The second lady told me that I was homosexual, and I don't know her. And then the third person I saw realized who I was, and she just wanted to see me. So I haven't had good experiences. So I don't find my spiritual fulfillment like that. That's why I go into holy places. People find it funny that I was in church, but I got a lot from it. The guy gave me great messages. I felt that they called it Holy Spirit energy. It was amazing for me. So you've got to find what works for you. So I myself am skeptical of my own industry. In fact, in the UK, they market me as a skeptical psychic. I don't think psychic's the right word, actually, but I am skeptical myself.
Yeah.
So skepticism is not bad, but I think with regards to skepticism with me specifically, just come and have a conversation and then see. So I like that. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So the more skeptical, the better.
People come to you, you've said this, that people don't come to you when they're having a good time. It's usually with difficulties and challenges. So maybe we can talk about some of the common challenges that you face. So I imagine one of the big things would be relationships. What are the common issues that people experience?
So it's an unfortunate truth that, if I see 10 people a day, 8 of them are battling with their relationships. It's really bad in our country, actually. It's really difficult, but it's very, very much about them missing each other, about them not taking the time to understand. I've realized there's a massive lack of empathy. True empathy is putting yourself in your partner's shoes and understanding their perspective emotionally, not just what you think. Guys have a big issue with that specifically because we are born with ego and testosterone, and we think we're right. Most of the time we're not. So I'll give you an example. I do a reading for a wife, and she's telling me, I'm so unhappy. Joe, I'm unhappy. I want to leave this guy. He might provide for me, he might do all of that, but he's not giving me anything of what I need. And remember, women are emotional. So then the husband comes because he feels like he has to, and he's like, but I love her and I give her everything. Oh, she's fine, don't worry. And I say to him, my man, she's not fine. No, she's fine, I'll do this. I say, she's not fine. This is actually what she needs. Why don't you try this and suck some humble pie and just be a better version and do this and practice it and try. And in essence, sometimes that works, but a lot of people don't want to hear that. And a lot of people are existing in a space that's a negative, but they're just existing. The best relationships that I know, they're working on themselves, they're making an effort for their partners, they're trying, they're communicating, they're clearing with each other. I tell everybody that's battling, listen, if you don't like the way your husband's feet smell, you've got to tell him. Whatever is affecting you, you've got to work on it. And yourself, whatever you're doing wrong, you've got to try and be better for your person. Relationship's not easy, man. It takes work. So often, everybody in the relationship thinks their partner's psychic, and they must just know.
They must guess, yeah.
And it's not like that, So there's a massive miscommunication that's going on, a serious lack of empathy, the true feelings of your partner, their understanding. It's unfortunate to say because I'm a guy, but massively from the male perspective.
Okay.
So spiritually, my deep level meditations, Rantana says, ego is the downfall of man. And every day we should wake up and say, universe, take me out of my ego, and you'll become a better version of you. Because it's entrenched in us as guys. It doesn't mean women don't have egos, of course they do. It's just the testosterone fuels our ego a lot more.
Do you find that with the clients that you see these days, is there any common thread with poor physical health?
Big time. I think it's got a lot also to do with the food we eat, the way we live, the easiness, I just made a new word, but to pick up a pie at the garage is a lot easier.
Convenience, really.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that's the word I was thinking. It's just, we are designed to live poorly from society. It's difficult to actually live a cleaner life. People don't want to be physical. People don't want an ice bath. People don't want to do the work. So it's unfortunate, but it's true. And you know very well I'm looking into that. I'm studying it quite a lot in my personal space, and I think health is important. The healthier you are, the better life you live, the better you are for your partner, for your family, for everything. But yes, it's a very, very common thread. Unfortunately, very common.
Do you find that improving the state of your health physically can improve you energetically, spiritually?
So definitely, I'd like to give you quite an interesting example. I've been doing a lot of hyperbaric chamber. So my memory is coming back, my energy is coming back, my drive is much stronger. And if you just look at the science of what hyperbaric does, it makes perfect sense.
What does it do in a nutshell?
So you're in a compressed space. It's kind of like swimming deep underwater. So your body's in a compressed space, and they put oxygen up your nose, and you're breathing in that clear, pure oxygen. So it's healing you internally. Pure oxygen heals you. So as we get older, our telomeres get shorter, basically. And it kind of reverses that. So you might have a blockage in your body, in your leg that you don't know about. It kind of heals everything. But, I had an injury that I was working through, so I thought, let me do hyperbaric every day instead of gym training, because I couldn't train. I actually had my knees done with PRP, so you can't train. So I did hyperbaric every day, and my life just changed. My retention is better. I'm reading properly again. I'm studying better. My drive's better. So it just sort of gives you energy, but it puts the healing into your body. So I don't know what was affected, but something definitely was. So it forces healing. But I really believe people should make that a hobby. Some sort of healing, some sort of exercise, some sort of spirituality, some sort of definite sort of nutritional plan across the board. All these guys, all these professors, and I know you know them, everybody should look up Huberman, David Sinclair, Mark Hyman, Les Friedman.
I think it is Lex Friedman.
Sorry. These guys are all in labs, most of them, with white coats studying these things, and the proof is there. And they're realizing very much that all the stuff's happening because of what we're putting into our body. If you fast a little bit, those rats are living 6 times longer than the other rats.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, When they put them on glucophage, what's happening is they're lowering their insulin levels.
Yeah.
Like sugar is a big no-no, man. Nobody should be having sugar. So this stuff's there, and it's causing damage to us. So the cleaner we are, the more spiritual we become. The more we live our life accordingly, our vibrations higher, so we live better, we connect better, we spiritually stronger.
You're obviously into health and wellness. You're jacked, you're strong. So how do you train and how do you eat?
So my eating was wrong, actually. I was always training, and I got bulkier, and I was carrying a lot of water. My energy levels were low, and so I've gymmed for 28, 29 years of my life now, but I was training wrong. So what I did personally, even though I'm not a lot of our trainer, I've got a really good personal trainer, and every morning I see him. And I often don't feel like it, but I go. And he trains me really hard. So I've got specific goals that I've told him, and I won't miss it. And I eat accordingly. And especially in the last 6-7 months, my whole body and my energy's changed. So I'm eating super clean. I'm eating the correct combination of proteins, carbs, vegetables, and I'm supplementing accordingly for my body. So I went and did my bloods, I did my hormone level, I got that checked. I went to a hormone optimizer. So those levels were all messed up in my body, and I don't think people realize how important that is. Got mine checked, I'm taking exactly what's necessary for me now. And I'm eating accordingly, and I'm taking the right supplementation for me. So I battle with methylation and homocysteine. So I'm supplementing specifically with it. I think 90% of the population's battling with that, and they don't know it. So I'm trying to be as scientific as I can. I'm trying really hard to drop my body fat. I'm trying really hard. And it's also for longevity. It's not just about wearing a Speedo on the beach. It's great. But mind and energy, my children have grandchildren. I want to play with them. And the other day I was mountain biking. I don't really want to tell everybody my age, but I fell. And I handled it well. I fell hard.
Yeah.
I had roasties all over me. But my body handled it. And some people my age falling like that, they're not going to handle it. And I realized the gymming and the bone density.
It improves, yeah.
It's definitely, because very easily I could have broken something. Thank you, universe. But that's the benefit of it. Also, I'm doing a lot of ice baths. And for people that look into it, your yellow fat gets stronger.
Yes.
And
your brown fat.
Your brown fat, yes. Yeah. Thank you. So it gets a lot stronger, so you can handle that stuff better. A lot of people in later life, they fall and they break something, they don't recover from it.
They don't, yeah.
So, they got into an ice bath every day and they learned to enjoy it. Completely different scenario.
The phenomenon with increasing the brown fat in the cold, it improves your overall energy because the brown fat is actually proliferated with more mitochondria. That's why it's brown. So you're producing more energy. It's more active. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got into that from Wim Hof, and I liked his story, and I went into it, and I started with that, and there's so many studies on that guy.
Yeah.
And they've done so many tests on him, and I love that. Again, it's proof. They put virus into that guy. He never got sick. And the people that they were treating allopathically, they got horribly sick.
And he recreated it with his students to show that anybody could do it with the right training.
And he's right.
Yeah.
You don't get, if you live in Antarctica, it's not flu. You're getting there. It doesn't, the cold. He said you must learn to love the cold. The cold is your friend.
Yeah.
Cold is not your enemy.
Yeah.
And that serotonin release, it's horrible to do, but man, when you come out of that ice bath, they reckon it's like a cocaine high that you don't come down from. That's what scientists are equating it to.
Yes.
But you feel incredible, eh? Have you done that?
I do the cold shower and the cold plunge after the sauna. So I try to do that. It's not ice cold, but I do occasionally use the chilled pool, which is about 8 degrees. After the sauna, it still feels quite cold.
Absolutely.
I think you have the benefits.
That's cold, yeah.
But to go into it without the sauna first that's a big challenge for me.
So it's not pleasant. Nobody really wants to do it, but the value is just ridiculous. So I try that as often as I can. I sauna 5 times a week. I'm talking to the right medical people. I'm trying, if I can, I go out for drips as often as I can. Obviously, the right ones for me. Trying to work with glutathione quite a lot. And of course, I'm studying this stuff. I'm reading it, and I'm trying to apply the sciences to myself. So, these guys all talk about. I'm just trying to think about the chemical components, but glucophage, the chemical components, metformin.
Metformin, yeah.
You can't believe the difference in my father. I put him on glucophage. Half of America's on glucophage, and the side effects are that they're living longer, 20, 30 years longer, and they're not getting disease. It's quite a nice side effect.
Yeah, I think chronically most of the population is insulin resistant, and glucophage makes you insulin sensitive. And so you shift what is thought to be the cause of all metabolic disease.
100%. And the good thing about America is they've got the data. So that's when they realize, hey, something's going on. So David Sinclair pioneered that. So my dad's doing well. He actually dropped weight. He's sleeping better. He's doing well. So if I can get a few more years out of my old timer, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before, we've spoken about it before, where you are able to see health issues. I think it's called medical mediumship. How does that happen?
So if I concentrate hard enough, I can see it on the aura. I can also feel it clairsentiently. It's actually a big part of what I do. It's why I'm fascinated with medical stuff, because I can feel it and I can see it. Generally, it's a feeling, that I'm more conscious of. So I can feel it like in my body something's wrong, and I say, go check this out, try this, work with this. I'm very lucky to be surrounded by doctors too, and I can bounce off of them. Everybody knows if I lived my life differently, I think I would have been a doctor, because I really enjoy that. How do doctors react to this ability? So the people that I love, that are close to me, they work with it a lot, because I see things differently to them. So often they'll ask my advice, actually. But generally they don't understand, especially if they're old school. But the ones that I know, they find a lot of value in it. Especially if they're treating it and they're not working. And there's a blockage and I want to know what's going on. how better to treat something. Look at it from a different angle.
How does it present to you when you feel something or sense?
So let's say, so if the person is nauseous, like I can feel it. Or, if they're carrying stuff in their chest, if they've got a blockage, so I can feel that, that's first of all. But in the actual aura, I can see what area is being affected. And of course, I know their anatomy now, so I kind of know where they're affected. And then I also see it as a color, by the way. Brown, spiritually, is medical. So wherever there's brown, I know there's issues. And I've never been wrong yet. So that's not an ego statement. It's easy to see, because if there's brown there, it means something's manifesting.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Some kind of blockage.
Yeah. Obviously, you do a lot of work with people that have suffered tragic losses. And not everybody is able to see you immediately, at least. And there would be people watching that have just suffered tragic losses. Although it's hard to offer any kind of comfort in that situation, is there any message that you would give to someone that's just suffered a loss?
So obviously my sincere condolences initially. It's not easy, because we are human beings and very emotional, and the physicality of that hugging and communication is important to us. But I teach people a lot how to work with people in spirit. So my mom is in spirit, and my relationship with her today is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So it's not an ending. It's just our human brains are again taught that. We're actually taught that when you go up there, that's it. There's no communication. It's not true. It's just simply not true. They're here still. I mean, my mom's embraced me. I feel her. I can smell her. The strongest psychic sense there is smell. Spirit communicates with us through nature. So my advice would be sensitive to your surroundings. Watch your senses and experience that energy, because they're trying to communicate with us. In fact, I would take it a step further and say, communicate with them. Ask them for signs. Ask them for help, because it helps with the healing process. And let me tell you, spirit's mischievous. They play with us. So if the lights start flickering, don't call the electrician. It's funny. They're trying to get our attention. But it's more like they're saying, listen, I'm here. Don't worry, I'm here. And that's very healing. Especially when the person knows it's them. There's no grey area. So mom's perfume, I smell it. My mom smoked courtly cigarettes. We all know when she's there, and it's very distinct. No one in my family smokes, So it can be very healing, but we choose to come here, and we choose our experiences, and like I said before, we bring people into that contract. So sometimes their life purpose is to help us from there. And that is the way that it is, and we don't understand it. But when we're lucky enough to go through, we go, now I get it. We're not meant to understand it fully. Doesn't mean it's not sore, it's very painful. But it is a part of our life process. My granny on her deathbed she said to me, she told me, I'm not afraid to die. It's part of life, and we know what happens. And we're fortunate. And she was absolutely right.
Do you find sometimes that you engage with clients and they pass on, and do you reconnect?
Yeah, it's happened a few times. Often it's happened, and I'm thinking a lot about them, and they're around, and I can feel them. And then I wonder why I'm thinking about them, and then I see somebody from the family, and then they've passed away. So that happens a lot, yeah.
How does it present when you do a reading? How do you acknowledge a presence?
So there's different ways, but often if I'm talking to the client, they'll talk to me from behind. So behind me, straight away, that's like family and people that you love. To the side of me, these are people that are just using me as a medium to relay messages to their friends. And then to the immediate right, those are my people. But that's how they present themselves in a reading. But sometimes I can physically see them, sometimes they'll talk to me. It just depends. But in a reading, there's a lot of information. So they more sort of use me as a medium to communicate with the person.
Mm.
That's sort of how that works.
Okay. Yeah. If you think about the idea of this podcast about living your life with peak performance, what would your definition be of a life lived at peak performance?
I love that name, by the way.
Thanks.
And I think a peak performance life is every aspect of your life, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and medically. All of those things. Make a goal for yourself on all of those levels and learn and grow in all of them. And education as well.
Mm.
I think you should always learn something, always. And when you're working with all of those different elements, your quality of life will be better. Your energy will be better. You'll be a better human being. You'll be a nicer person. You'll attract better energy, and you'll be living your life at a peak performance. There's no doubt.
Mm.
And monitor yourself as well. My kids tease me with my Garmin watch. I'm not wearing it today, but I'm monitoring my sleep. I'm trying to sleep better, longer, better REM. Simply because the next day I'm more functional. I'm better. So my sleep was a big problem in my life, also was spiritual. So my sleep etiquette, thanks to all those professors, is much better now. But I had to work on it. You know, I was losing a lot of my hair. I had to work on that. Figured out what was wrong in my body, my water retention, my concentration, all that kind of stuff. That's just personal for me. But I worked on it. You know, I did Jimmy Quick, his brain techniques.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried it, but I was pushing for that, and it works. It works. Check it out. But yeah, make yourself your own personal hobby. That's my advice. It's in alignment with what you're doing, and I think this is an awesome space for people to grow. But investigate. Don't be skeptical. Check it out. Learn, investigate, learn yourself. Be honest with yourself.
That's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, very much so. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. Most people are lying to themselves. Be honest with yourself. Your life will be better.
What are common habits that you see that hold people back from reaching their peak?
So, from a spiritual perspective, 100%, if I have a conversation with somebody that's battling, it's the self-negative talk. It's the negative process in the mind. And big time, actually. That's what affects people. Negative places, people, situations, influence, substance, all that kind of stuff. So it's a combination of that. But I find this is what affects people the most. And tell me they can't, just get up and do it. You know, don't listen to the mind. And then eventually you teach yourself, and all of a sudden you're living in a better space. So don't listen to the mind, big time. It's a very hectic example, but suicide, it's a good one. Like you don't wake up in the morning super excited to commit suicide. It's your mind telling you. I've connected with thousands of people that have committed suicide. Not one is happy that they've done it. Not one. So don't listen to the mind. Negative part of the world is trying to affect you. Don't listen to it.
If there was one thing, just one piece of advice that everybody could follow to improve their lives, what would that one thing be?
So, sure. We all have a spirit inside of us. We all have that spiritual energy. And there is a massive need for humanity to connect with that. Whatever the word spiritual means to you, do that.
Okay. And if there was one thing that you think everybody should avoid, what should that be?
Wow, that's quite a powerful question. I've got a couple of funny things that I want to talk about, but in general, the negative influence of this world is something that we're all aware of. So I'd like to say this. We all know what's bad for us. Avoid that. That's a multi-dimensional answer. But if you look at any of my social medias or anything, I tell everybody, we all know. We all know what to avoid. We just don't. So don't listen and don't just avoid it.
We'll put your social media handles up in the details of the video. Would that be the best way for people to connect with you?
Yes, yeah. All my information is up there. We'll put it. I'll also put my. I'm happy to put my work contact details on there as well for everybody. But absolutely.
I imagine that you have a number of clients and there's limited time to see everybody. So it's probably already at that stage where it's difficult for you to fit in everybody that needs to see you. Are there other opportunities maybe to engage with a bigger group?
Very much so.
Yeah?
So I do tour with my work. I do conference. I do communications like that. I do group meditations. I also live my life very differently. So I was doing 10 readings a day and I was booked every day and I was booked for a year in advance. I don't live my life like that now because I realized it's good being busy, but people were getting a reading and then there was no follow-on with that. So I don't sort of prostitute myself like that anymore. I live differently so that I'm more available. And I work sporadically so that I'm also not tired. So I will see people and I will sort of fit them in as soon as I can. But I do work differently. So for instance, in business, a lot of people want me to help them with business. Those are personal things that I do differently to my readings. If people want a clearing, that's also different. So I've got different dimensions. People come for a reading, I'll only do a certain amount in a day. Otherwise, it's bad for me and for them. I want people to get the full experience. And generally, when I see somebody, I'll ask them, listen, I think you should come back at this time because this and this should happen. So I kind of book them in and we can work accordingly. Of course, if something serious happens and it's an emergency, the way I'm living my life now, generally I can make a plan. So I'm trying, but I'm very blessed and lucky to be super busy with my work, but I would like to try and help to see everybody that I can.
Okay. I want to make it a bit of a tradition with the podcast that I summarize with either a quote or a poem that I feel resonates with the guest. So I've a quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and I think she's most famous for being either the psychologist or a psychotherapist that defined the stages of grief.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll read it to you because I think this will resonate with you. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen.
So I know that very well. It's stunning. Wow, that's beautiful. I also wanted to tell you something. I've been thinking about it since your question. It's very relevant to that. You asked me just now. There was one thing. I'd like to kind of just revisit that.
Sure.
And it's also, it's not a poem, but it's relative. And I try and live my life by this. I was taught it quite a long time ago. It's their version of enlightenment. I say there in spirit. Enlightenment's a really big word, and if you ask 100 different people what enlightenment is, you'll get 100 different answers. But in life, if you're always happy with what you get as opposed to what you want, you'll always be happy and you'll always end up getting what you want. So a lot of people don't understand it, but if you just think about it a little bit,
Yeah.
it might make a bit of sense.
Those are beautiful words.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Jason, it was a pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure being here, my man.
Thank you so
It's
much.
Thank you for you. Thank you.
Thanks, my man.
Thanks, my man. That was great.
Yeah, and that was it. Episode 1 done.